Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Kirkpatrick Podcast. It is your girl, Vanessa, and I am so excited to be here with you today. It is dark hair season. Fall is here. And when it is fall, that only means one thing for many of us. It is budget justification season. Everyone has a little bit of dread during this time. We start to get concerned. What are we going to save? What are we going to spend? What am I going to be allowed to keep? What should I keep? And so in today's episode, we are going to walk through my key questions for you to help you really think about how it is that you are spending your budgets. So here's the problem. All too often, when we start approving budgets, we just approve without really thinking in times of really great, economies, right? When things are really, really good, we generally won't do a lot of change and really scrutinizing our budget. And yet, when you have times of recession or, just changes in the company or for my friends in the public sector, a new administration or a new board of directors, budgets get scrutinized and budgets start to get cut. And the problem that we start to see is we start to approve training spend that has no measurable change because we don't ever take a good critical look as to whether or not we even should be spending anymore on that program. And all it does is cause deprecation to your brand, right? To our brand as a learning function. And next thing we know, we're wasting money on programs that don't cause any sort of change, and everyone kind of knows it and everyone is talking about it secretly in like the back rooms and stuff. Like they're making us go through this leadership development program, but like no one does anything with this, with what we learn, right? Or you waste budget on things like tools that are ineffective or cumbersome, or you just don't even use anymore, but everyone kind of forgets that you still have that license. Lord knows I find subscriptions that I'm paying for because I forget about it all the time. Or you're spending money on vendors maybe that are now no longer suiting the needs for your organization, or you just haven't been happy with for a really, really long time. But it's like bringing in another organization or another vendor or going through the process of finding someone feels way too complicated and cumbersome. And it's like, you know what? I'm good. You also, when we start to spend without really looking at what's working in our organizations, that's where team frustration and burnout really starts to happen. I like to think that we all as humans like to move the needle, and we like to do good, meaningful work, right? And when we don't feel like we're doing meaningful work, that accelerates burnout, that accelerates that frustration. And so that leads to low employee engagement, And then, of course, when we're not actually really looking at our training spend, we face the problem where we're not making any movement on strategic plans or strategic goals, And I think there's no, CEO or executive that puts out a strategic plan that puts it out there with the understanding the idea that a lot of this isn't going to happen. Their goal, their plan is to make the strategic plan happen, but they cannot move the boulder up the hill themselves, right? Everybody in the organization has to do their part to align to that strategic plan. And so when you bring in, frameworks and evaluation language and you really want to move towards a culture of, accountability, a culture of innovation, a culture of, continuous learning and improvement, you've got to bring in evaluation. And that's why the Kirkpatrick model is perfect for organizations, because it's a framework that is simple. It is easy to understand. There is no complex math or language here. And It is the lens that helps you to prevent waste, ensure that you have ROI-like confidence, whether or not you're measuring ROI, or maybe you're measuring return on expectations, which is actually the better thing to be measuring, or even return on performance, and surfaces hidden inefficiencies. And that's okay. And that's the great thing, right? You actually do want to uncover where there are inefficiencies so that you can be proactive about changing those things. So let's start with the first question that you want to ask yourself, right? So the first question is, what business goal will this product, program, vendor directly impact? So we don't want you to fund training for training's sake, right? Everyone should have a leadership development program. So I'm just going to fund this leadership development program because we know that we should have one and it's something that we know we need, but we don't actually think that it's working, but we just need to say that we have one because it's a really good opportunity to retain employees or recruit new hires, right? That's a bad decision to make, right? And so instead of funding that leadership development program, I think the more boss move is to cut it and just say, you know what, we're going to take a year and we're going to pause leadership development. And we're going to instead leverage more mentorships or informal mentorships and coaching to still develop leaders while we take a really good look at what are the kinds of leaders that we need? What are the types of programs that are moving the needle? How can we create something that is actually going to lead to behavior change? So when you are funding, you really want to look at what is the clear link to a KPI, a strategic priority, or a business problem that this program, tool, or vendor is there to solve. So, let's say you are in the customer service, you have customers and you have to have customer service training, right? So you might say, when you're doing your budget justification is we're funding this, not because we have customers and we need to, better service our customers. You're saying, in your justification, we're funding this because we need to reduce call resolution time by 20% in 6 months. That is much easier to defend and keep as opposed to just saying, well, we have employees that serve customers, so we need to have customer service training, right? It's a much stronger argument. And if we're trying to elevate learning and development to be at that same table with the C-suite, then we need to be talking like the C-suite, okay? We need to be talking like the executives do. We cannot use our language. We cannot use feelings, right? We have to use cold, hard facts and strategy and business priorities. So when you're thinking about, where your budget is currently going, really think about, is that thing that you are spending tied to a specific goal? And that helps you to tie level 4 results. Like, this is how you can do the Kirkpatrick model, like kind of a meta sort of way, if you will, right? And you are starting to evaluate not just programs, but your own processes, right? You're starting to use that language and that framework in order to run processes in your organizations to make decisions, right? Your goal with this question is to ensure that results drive the initiative and not the other way around. The initiative should not drive the result. Your end goal, your North Star, needs to be what drives that initiative. Okay, so that was question 1. Question 2, we talked about level 4. Now let's talk about level 3, my favorite level. What behavior change will we see? It is time that we stop funding learning. We stop funding education for education's sake. We do not need to just learn more. If we are going to learn something in our roles, it is because it needs to be tied to performing better at work, to doing some sort of thing differently, right? To changing our behavior. Heck, if you're in, higher education, right? If you are creating a new syllabus for your class for the next semester, it's not just about what education do they need. It's what are they going to take this syllabus and take this course and do with it when they're out in the real world, right? Like that could be a whole podcast episode. Let me know if you're interested in more of like a higher ed sort of conversation. I know a lot of people in the higher ed space, so it'd be a great co-podcast situation. So actually, now that I'm saying that, we're going to mark that one down and just do it because I know y'all want it. So anyway, we digress. But really thinking about, it's not just about education and learning. We have to know that what matters the most is what people are going to do differently because they participated in this program, because they were touched by this intervention, right? So start to ask for a behavioral objective with your budget, right? What will people do on the job that they're not doing now? How will we be able to observe or measure that? When you are actually thinking about behavior and performance, you start to realize that you need to design differently and design better. We start to look at our metrics and say, maybe I need to go back and redo the program, right? So what's cool is, we've got the performance designer certification. It's our take on instructional design. I don't believe in instructional design anymore. I'm going to call it. I'm an instructional designer by trade. I believe in performance design. I think that's the future of business. I think that's what's going to get funded, right? And also, FYI, that's a great way to talk the CEO's language is talking about performance, right? They're constantly asking, how did this product perform? How did that stock perform? That is boss CEO language, right? And that's what we want to, again, emulate and use. So going back, I think we do need to stop funding instructional design and we need to start funding performance design. If we want to actually make change happen in organizations, we need to bring the 90s back and bring back performance consulting. I can tell you where I think that it went. Again, this is going to have to be another podcast episode. I think that performance consulting, went away when e-learning authoring tools became really big and creating content became super accessible. So anyone and everyone could dump their content into Captivate and Lectora and Storyline, right? And they could create a course in minutes, not in minutes. It'd take a lot longer than that, but a lot faster than you could. And we were doing things a lot less manually and more, not automated, but through the technology so we could scale faster. So the name of the game became scale and reach more people, not necessarily performance. Because remember, back in the 90s, things were still in person or, things like that. We didn't have a ton of, at that time it was called CBTs, computer-based training, right? Where you got the disc and it would all be in there anyway. Oh, the 90s. I do miss that time and that era. Now for everyone's probably in their mind thinking of the AOL dial-up, and that's all that's playing in my head right now. But anyway, we actually right now are in a place where we can bring performance consulting back. And I actually believe that AI is going to help us bring performance consulting back. Because it's going to take some of these things off of our plate. That's not going to be about developing all of this content. It's going to actually be more about developing AI agents and things like that in order to bring the learning to the person right? Wherever they are, which gives you more time to be a consultant, right? And to worry about performance. So anyway, that's my spiel on no more funding instructional design. So really thinking about the behavioral aspect, right? Remember, level 3, behavior is the bridge between learning and results. So when you're looking at your budget, it needs to not just be linked back to an end result, because there's a lot of things that happen, right? It has to also say, we want to reduce the call center calls by 20% in 6 months. And this is why, right? This is what we're not doing. This is what we should be doing on the calls. This is the tool or the technique. It really gets more specific. As an executive, when you can give that level of detail to your budget, it makes the picture a lot clearer for them. I have decision fatigue. I hate when my team comes to me with a blank slate, a blank page, if you will. I'm not the blank page girl, especially at work, especially when I have to make decisions, and I'm a mom, right? My girls are 7 and 8, about to be 8 and 9. Holy guacamole. By the way, as of recording, they went to their first day of 2nd and 3rd grade. I had no tears. Thank you very much. But yeah, I have a lot of decisions I have to make. So instead of giving me the entire universe of options, the quickest way for me to make no decision is to give me all the options in front of me. You can have whatever you want. It's like going to the Cheesecake Factory, right? Like, I order the same exact thing at the Cheesecake Factory because their menu is way too overwhelming. I know they think that they're providing me with more options. I'm going to try more different things, but it actually makes me do the opposite. And I would love to do an evaluation of people that go to the Cheesecake Factory and like, do you actually order something different every single time? And like, what percentage of their menu is ordered? Anyway, again, we're digressing, but I would rather get specifically, if you buy this, Vanessa, this is the result we're going to get, and this is what we're going to see. Like, it gives me more of a full picture, and I can make a decision based off of that. In the absence of details, what we actually do as humans is supplement with our own ideas and our own stories, right? So we're not providing enough detail in our budget justifications, or if we're not asking for that, it's a lot easier to get cut. And when we think about the tools that are line items, right, or the vendors that we're working with, you really want to ask yourself, are these vendors enabling behavior change, or do they just deliver content? And for some tools, just delivering content is fine because that's what you need it for. So we need to go in and say, okay, well, if I use this tool, how am I going to ensure that I'm enabling behavior change? Maybe it's how I design the program needs to be different, or I need to get some other tools in order to supplement where this tool is not serving us, right? To ensure we get the fuller package. Because I will also say, I don't believe that there's one tool that can do everything. I think we need a suite. We need a whole toolbox. Again, you all know my garage is a plumber's dream, literally their version of heaven. We've got all the tools to do all different things. Some do the same as others, but it gives us options when we need it. So anyway, that is the second question. The third question that you have to ask yourself when you're about to approve your training budget is, how will we know if it even worked? You need to start asking, how are we evaluating this? What is the evaluation plan for this? How do we know that our onboarding is working? Because all I know is that I'm continuously hiring, and not because the company is growing. So there is some breakage somewhere. And so we need to figure out where the breakage is. And like maybe onboarding is a great place to start. Maybe we need to redesign onboarding into everboarding and thinking about the whole holistic life cycle of an employee, right? So really, you want to push metrics and data and timing of the evaluation. So that way next year, when it's time to justify budget again, right? You can look at the whole picture and say, that did not work like we needed it to. We need to have that program, or we actually don't really even need to have that program. We can supplement it with, maybe a digital adoption tool or something like that. So let's cut it and free up that spend. Money is finite. Time is finite. We've got to figure out how to do more with less. And so really, really ask yourself, do I have the evaluation plan in place for this? And this is where, vanity metrics like attendance or completion or number of people trained or number of hours trained, like that means nothing. Nothing. That is helpful for you. I'm not saying don't track that. I would like to know how many people I've trained, but that's not the number I'm highlighting, right? If I want budget spend. Because again, it opens up more questions. So I'm going to not assume that everybody watches every single episode, although I know that a lot of you guys do. So thank you very much for all of the support. I do appreciate it so much. But I shared that an executive that works with one of my customers said to their VP, you're giving me number of hours trained, and all I'm wondering is are we training the same people? How much of that is waste? Was that all that training time really necessary? Those people could have been out in the field. Could they have closed a sale in that time? Again, in the absence of details, a lot of assumptions get made. And if your brand as an L&D department is not the epitome of excellence, the epitome of performance, and really being a business partner, that's where things get cut. That's when they're going to say, they're doing a lot of training and I'm not seeing a lot of results. So we're going to need to take some money from them and give it to someone or another department who actually needs it and can prove results. So really think about your metrics, right? And ask yourself, is it vanity or are they impact metrics? So things like performance, quality, cost, safety, sales, those sorts of things create impact on the business. Employee engagement, right? That's important. Employee retention, churn, all of those numbers, that is actually what they want to see. Because we instituted this leadership development program, we saw this many people promoted, this many, the number of manager employee satisfaction that has increased by this percentage point. That is how you continue to get funded, but you don't just get funded. You get noticed. And that's when your CEO says, if we're turning out that many leaders, imagine if I gave it a little bit more money, right? How many more leaders could we create? Then what could happen with my organization, right? And actually don't even have them think that. Paint that picture for them. If you gave us 20% more budget, which I recognize that might be a lot, but go with me, it's an easy number. If you gave me 20% more, this is how many more people can go through the program. This is the spread. Because let's say you take from a few from from all these different departments. We saw this. Now imagine adding 20% more to that. pays for itself, more than pays for itself, right? It pays for itself and provides something back in return for the organization. So really think about that. Paint that picture for them. You have to know, how will we know, will this work? And you need to ask your L&D department for this information. They've got to provide it. It's time to hold the feet to the fire and say, how will we know that this worked? That's the only way that we change. We don't change if we're in our comfort zone. It's like, I live down here in South Florida now. The hardest thing for me to do is make friends. I've got like no friends here. Got some. Don't get me wrong. I've got some family here. But you want to know why I haven't made a whole new group of girlfriends? Because the last thing I want to do when I have a long list of things to do, and I was writing a book, is push myself out of a comfort zone and be uncomfortable and potentially rejected. Like all the things come back from my childhood. So like, here we go again with the therapy. I'm not having it today. I'm having it Thursday. But like I'm in that awkward phase. I don't want to go out and push myself in that comfort zone. And honestly, like, I get nervous. Like, am I going to are people not going to like me? Like, am I not as great of a person as I think that I am? And so when we tie that back to, us and learning, we avoid evaluation because we're afraid of what we might find out, because we might not have those skills, because we spend a lot of time worrying about design development, so we never really got those reps in and built up those skills. So I'm just going to stay in my comfort zone. I'm not going to actually give you the evaluation. I don't actually know how we can get to level 3 and 4. And instead of asking someone or, going to the experts, and to be clear, we are not the only experts in this space. I know plenty. I support plenty, that are not solely tied to Kirkpatrick. There are plenty of experts out there to get support from that do this really, really well. And so really, we've got to start having our feet held to the fire to actually make us change, right? Like my loneliness is getting to a point where like, I've got nothing, like, I'm like, okay, Vanessa, I'm like texting some people. I'm like, do you want to go have a lunch? Would you like to go have a drink? Would you like to go, on a workout date, friend date, like, I'm starting to push myself because now my feet are being held to the fire. Like I've been here a year. I've got no more excuses. So let's just look a little bit about me. Enjoy, my friends. So one more, thing on this is really thinking about when you are reviewing your vendor and your contracts for like your tools, especially your evaluation tools, like that SurveyMonkey. And I've got some other survey tools and analytics tools. Really ask yourself, do they provide the meaningful analytics that you need? Or are they just service level reporting? Are they saying to you, yeah, we do level 3 and 4, but you never actually see them do level 3 and 4, or that they're doing it wrong because you follow the Kirkpatrick podcast, or you've been to a program and actually how levels 3 and 4 are calculated. And so really thinking about, is this doing what we need it to do? And if it's not, then it's time to look for other support. A lot of customers now that are reaching out to me and saying, hey, can you help look at this platform with us? Because we are just sick and tired of being told by this vendor that they have level 3 and 4 and they don't. And we need to have that data. And so, if you are one of those that are sick and tired of that, come talk to me. I can definitely, support you with providing you recommendations, even our own tools that are doing level 3 and 4, depending on your needs. But less about selling our own tools. It's also about finding you the right tools and the right framework. So that is one last thing I want you all to think about, because it is no longer 2025, we cannot turn away from the fact that we've got to know where we're putting our money We've got to be very diligent about where we spend and why we spend. It'd be really fun if we did like a David Ramsey sort of situation where you gave me your training budget and then we tried to like work on it. Oh my God, wait, if anybody wants to do that, let me know, because I would love that. But one of the things that is like a tool or tactic that any sort of budgeter or planner like a David Ramsey is going to tell you is you've got to put it all on the table. You've got to look, where am I spending my money? And then you've got to ask yourself, is it returning results? Is it tied to a strategic goal? Is it actually something that is going to change behavior? And if all of these things are no, it's probably time to let it go. If you want more on this topic, we've got a whole episode all about, vendor selection and ensuring that they're aligned with the Kirkpatrick podcast. And so I invite you all to download our checklist, for budget approval, and make sure that you continue to follow the podcast. We've got a lot more really great stuff coming up this season that really has us take a deeper look at ourselves as a department, our culture, and really how do we make this shift from order taker to business partner. And with that, friends, we will catch you all on the next episode. Thanks.